are now being recorded. So the Chef Tech dropdown again, Chef Tech dropdown open is going to give you all of the available functionality in your Chef Tech. If you happen to see anything grayed out, that means that you don't have access to that functionality, or perhaps there's a higher Chef Tech program that doesn't have those options available to you. I'm currently working in Core Tech, which is our highest level of Chef Tech. Gives me the ability to do transfers and recs, and also build and send items to other profit centers and build different profit centers a lot easier. How I know what program that I have, in the top left-hand corner of your Chef Tech, you'll see Core Tech Enterprise Ultima Client. And you'll also notice that I'm in the grill dining room is my profit center. Profit centers are like Miguel, you were saying you have food trucks. So any area of operation that has its own individual invoices, its own physical inventory, its own sales, that would be considered a profit center. So you would get all of your reporting for those operations. And same with you, Jay, your other restaurants would be a different profit center as well. Instead of buying 5 individual Chef Techs, you would have one ultimate Chef Tech and then the different profit centers for the different restaurants.
Gotcha.
To find out how many profit centers are set up in your Chef Tech, again, accessing anything through the Chef Tech drop down in the top left-hand corner, you'll notice that we have Chef Tech Profit Center. Once I move over and I view details, this will show you how many profit centers you have set up in your Chef Tech. And when they are set up correctly, you'll notice that I have the commissary kitchen, Emma's Diner, Oak Bar, Texas Grill Dining Room. All of them do not share information, meaning they have their own recipes, their own inventory, purchases, sales, so on and so forth. A lot of people that have had Chef Tech in the earlier years, I have seen a lot of profit centers maybe not set up correctly. That way, like if somebody were to accidentally set up sharing inventory, then the numbers are they're basically the same profit center, just in different areas. But anything that happens in one happens in the other, so it creates a lot of havoc in your system. So as business owners, you guys definitely want to look at your profit centers and just make sure that they are not sharing any of the information. Okay. Chef Tech drop-down open, you're going to notice all of the different features. I'm going to look at my inventory. Anytime I hit one of the features, it pops up a list view. So I hit the inventory. You'll notice in the left-hand corner, it's my inventory list view. On the left-hand side, we call that the left tree, and then the list view in the middle. You can have multiple windows open. So also, not only do I do the Chef Tech drop down open, I can also hit what we call our button bars. This will be the one-stop shopping for your Chef Tech. So here I'm entering in all of my invoices, and then I have a recipe view as well. So this is my recipe list with my left tree, and you'll notice that they're always changing different list views. And to get out of a necessary list view, I use the close button on the top left. You can also hit the red X in the right-hand screen. If your GoToMeeting is covering up your screen, there's 2 arrows pointing together. If you hit those 2 arrows, it'll minimize that so you can see the full screen. But there's also a red X to get out of the list view. And then right above the Chef Tech drop down is a close all windows, which will get us back to the gray screen of love. So, because a lot of times people are troubleshooting and they maybe have an invoice open or a recipe open, so Chef Tech's unable to make those changes until those windows are closed. You'll also notice when we go into the different list views, my top drop-down bar and my bottom button bar is going to be different. It's directly correlated to whatever list view I'm in. For instance, I'm in the inventory list view, and here's my Chef Tech drop down. To the right of it is INV list drop down. I also have a print drop down. The print drop down is not print. It is where all of the reports are located for whatever list view you're in. So since I'm in the inventory list, you'll see all these print and preview options and my inventory list drop down. If I go into recipes by hitting my recipe button bar, you'll notice that my drop down next to Chef Tech is now recipe drop down, as well as my print drop down looks completely different as well. So depending upon what list views, those are going to change for you. I'm going to go into our inventory list. Our inventory list is the most important part of Chef Tech. How you devise this list and maintain this list. I call this list like your fingernails. It's always growing. It always needs to be trimmed, and it always needs to be maintained. Whether you bite them, whether you cut them, whatever you do, this list is the most important list in your Chef Tech, because this is what drives all of the information. As I said, product flow being the most important thing. On your left tree, you'll notice there's an all and an all stocked. The all list is going to show all of the inventory items in your Chef Tech. Anything in green and with a Metro Shelf icon means it is a stocked item, meaning there is a prior purchase for it, as well as it could be included in a recipe, and it could be included in your physical inventory. Anything in black is going to be items that were either pre-populated when Chef Tech came out of the box, because it came out of the box with about 1,900 items, to kind of give you an idea of naming convention, all lowercase, what it is, comma space, brief description. These also have back-end information attached to them. About 80% of these items have nutritional information, as well as weight to volume versions, which are very handy when you are costing out recipes. Because Chef Tech, when you purchase something by the case, you don't necessarily use a case of almonds in your recipe or a case of tomatoes in your recipe. So you'll have to tell Chef Tech what a case is in order for it to cost out in a recipe. And similarly to the inventory locations, I may buy my tomatoes by the case, but I may count them by the pound. So you'll have to have a necessary conversion as well. It's all about how you use it in a recipe to how you count it in physical inventory is how much information you'll have to give Chef Tech. You also have the ability in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a pesky little checkbox that says include sub-recipes. If I include sub-recipes, you'll notice another color. I've got blue now with a plate, fork, knife icon showing that that's a sub-recipe. So anytime I create a recipe and mark it as a sub-recipe, it gives me the ability to count it in physical inventory and use it in other recipes instead of writing out the whole recipe.
Becky, how'd you make that sub recipe just show up like that?
Sure. In the bottom, very bottom left of your inventory list view, underneath your left tree is include sub recipes.
Okay.
It's a little checkbox. Yep.
Gotcha.
So, that's why I call it the pesky one, because if you don't have the right window views, it's kind of hard to see down there. So that's going to be my all. Now, what I was talking about being my most important, the most important list view on here is your all stocked. This is now it organizes it by everything that is all stocked and your sub recipes. I'm going to uncheck that box and just look at the green. So these are all my green items. The only thing that should be in this list is everything that you currently purchase within the last 3 to 6 months, everything that is currently used in a recipe and is currently on your shelves to be counted. So a lot of times people will buy things, you'll see turnover in your company, and different chefs will be like, well, I don't want to name tomatoes tomatoes. I want to call it produce, comma space tomato. And you'll see, especially when you've had your chef tech over a large amount of time, I can always identify the naming convention right off the bat to see how the turnover was, or if somebody didn't understand what they were doing and they created a lot of inventory items. Chef Tech's very black and white when it comes to the naming convention of the items. So if I have slivered almonds, comma space slivered, and then 3 years later a new chef comes in and calls it nuts, comma space almonds slivered, or even all capital almonds, you have, what has happened is you have created more than one item. And when you cost out a recipe, the recipe will say almonds, comma space slivered, because that's what happened in the beginning, and it's got a cost to it. That's what's being counted. But every now and then I'll find someone that was populated in 2005, but truly what they're purchasing in the most real account of what almonds are using is all cap almonds. And then there's no link to an all caps almonds in recipes or physical inventory. So it's extremely important that the all stocked list stays consistent, whatever naming convention you choose. And that way, the product flow, again, you're actually using the product that you have recently purchased and using in a recipe and counting it. I currently, in my all stocked, I have about 258 items. It's in the right-hand side count. And when you look into your chef tech, that'll be a good indication if you have a lot of duplicates. With a Mexican restaurant and with a single standing restaurant, the count usually, depending if you have your bar in there, should be probably less than 1,000. About anything higher than that is usually country clubs and hotels with banquets and so on and so forth. So that count could be a very big indication of how much cleanup you may have or duplicates. Inside Chef Tech, anytime that you have an item that is an all stocked green item with the Metro shelf, whether you're in the inventory list, invoices, recipes, you can actually do some investigating of that item. First investigation is going to be your list view. You'll notice that I have it set to have my inventory name, my inventory item, my account category, if it's saleable, active, when my last purchase date was, and the date that it was added. So it kind of gives me an idea to make sure that it's the last purchase is relevant to my chef tech. The way to see different list views is properties, which is on my bottom button bar. If I go into properties, which is going to change in any list view, you'll notice that I have properties for inventory lists. I can go to columns, and I actually have a lot of items that I can actually see right in my list view. The last purchase price functionality didn't get added until either late 7,000 version or 8,000 version. So you may, depending upon what version you have, you may not have that option. But this option is fantastic for data cleanup, because if I were to see anything in here my last purchase was in 2014 or 15, I'm really hoping that isn't on my shelves still. So you have the ability to kind of look at your last purchase and select several items and destock in bulk through my inventory list dropdown. I can actually destock items in bulk. And that way, data cleanup becomes a lot easier. Back to our items. So not only do you have your list view to kind of look at items, but you can also right click, being one of your best friends in Chef Tech, right click, edit highlighted item, or you can simply double click that item and it will produce the snapshot of that item. When you look at the snapshot, so we're in the slivered almonds, you'll notice that I have several tabs down at the bottom. I have my item tab, general units conversions. So this gives me everything I need to know about slivered almonds in one-stop shopping. So you'll notice that I have an account category. It's according to food, 5,000 food. Account categories are typically going to be your general ledger codes or your account categories through your accounting system. You can link ChefTech with your accounting system so you don't have double entry, or if not, at least you can get a report, a food cost report out of ChefTech that's going to be similar to your accounting reports. So your accounting reports is going to say, hey, you're running a 28-32% food cost. ChefTech, if all of these are in the same buckets as your accounting codes, will also come up to a 32% food cost, but it'll tell you exactly what items are driving your cost up or down. So it gives you a lot more visibility in your operation by each individual either recipe or inventory item. If you had general account categories like I do, which is food, beer, liquor, wine, supplies, but as a chef or an operator, I want to know what my produce is doing because produce is so volatile. So you can actually set up subcategories if you wanted to do reporting off of other items instead of just generic food and generic supplies. Categories is the way that ChefTech handles all reporting. So you'll find categories and recipes as well, and that way you can really individualize your information and do reporting off of categories. In the middle is going to show you locations. This is where your slivered almonds is actually counted in your locations. My slivered almonds is counted in a dry storage, and you can also put slivered almonds in multiple locations. If it was on the line or anything like that, you can create those locations. And to the right, it's going to show what you count those dry almonds by according to the unit of measure. So it's in my food category, dry storage, and I count it by the pound. If I go to my general tab, this is going to show me all of the recipes that my slivered almonds is in. Currently, I don't have any recipes that slivered almonds is in. And as an operator, if I were to come through here and say, there's slivered almonds in all of my almond salads, why isn't it included in the recipe? So let's go ahead and find an item that is in a recipe. I'm going to switch over to avocado. And now if I go to my item tab, you'll notice that it's in food, it's counted in my walk-in, in Boulder Produce, and it's counted by the pound and counted by the pound. I go to general, and it's included in my avocado aioli and my grilled shrimp salad sandwich. This is also, I can double click and go straight into the recipe to see how it was used inside of a recipe. So I used 3 each avocados in my aioli. Okay. Units and descriptors, we're not going to go into detail on that. All of these are for higher functionality in ChefTech, and it's basically saying what unit of measure consolidated do you want to see in all of the different reports that are in ChefTech. Conversions, again, so what ChefTech always needs to know, so I'm going to go into my purchase tab. So I purchased my avocados by the case. You'll also get a graph down here, and you'll see all of the different prices and the times that I bought it. When you buy an avocado, and again, this is where you make your decision on if you need to add new items. Like people will add a 48 count of avocados and then they'll create a new one for an 88 count, or they'll say, well, these are Haas or these are organic or whatever it may be. But the biggest thing to know is how you use avocado in a recipe and how you count it in inventory. And if you use it in the same way and you count it the same way, then it should stay as one item and not be a different item. Now, if you count organic and only use your organic avocados in this recipe and you definitely count it a different way, then it would be avocado, comma space, organic, and then you can keep them separate. You can have as many product codes, so that means you can buy it from as many vendors as you like, just again, keeping the avocado in one location so you're using it. And then conversions. So I used each avocados in my avocado aioli, but I purchase it by the case. So when I enter in my invoices and I notice that it's by the case, I know they're not going to use a case of avocados and we're not going to count them by the case. So Chef Tech needs to know one case is 50 each, and that's where I was talking about conversions. So when you purchase it and you use it by a different unit of measure, that's how you cost out the items. So one case is 50 each. Now I can count it by the each or use it by an each. Now I say one each is 1 pound, and my 1 pound is a weight unit of measure. So therefore, I can actually use my avocado by the weight now. Any type of weight. Chef Tech will know ounce to pound to grams. So as long as I've got it from case to each and now each to pound, all of these are talking to each other. And as I said before, with the Chef Tech items, about 80% of them had an inlaid weight to volume. So 1 pound is 2.5 cups. So now I've got a weight to volume conversion. So now I can actually say, okay, I want 1 cup of chopped avocado for this salad, and Chef Tech will be able to cost it out now because I've gone from case to each to weight to volume. So I can use or count the avocado in any of those units of measure. Does that
That's
make
cool.
sense? Mhm.
Yeah, that makes really good sense.
Yeah, so it's very important, and a lot of times I've also noticed with turnover and kind of being self-taught without training, I could go into an avocado and I'll see another thing that I look for is they'll have 15 conversions in there, and it's basically someone desperately trying to get the missing conversion gone to get it costed. However, a lot of these can corrupt your data, obviously, if you don't have the right conversions. So unit of measure and conversions are extremely, extremely important in Chef Tech, and you want to keep them as concise as possible. Units of measure, Chef Tech also pre-populates about 25 of them, and you want to use those to your best ability because not only does Chef Tech use your naming convention literal with your product flow, it also uses your units of measure literal. So a lot of times I've seen clients use pound, P-O-U-N-D, and they type in pound. Well, Chef Tech doesn't know what a POUND is. So it breaks that connection of your units of measure. With
Mm.
this, our unit of measure is LB for pounds. So that links LB to OZ to G, but it won't link it POUND to OZ or OUNCE to break that connection. So looking for both of you, what you can do in your Chef Tech to see how your units of measure were used. Where you can access anything is your Chef Tech drop down, open, and you'll notice in alphabetical order down towards the bottom, you're going to see the word units. If I select my Chef Tech open units, you'll see that we have our units of measure. Now, when I look at this is another thing that I look at when I do data reviews and kind of help people guide them into their cleanup or understanding of Chef Tech. Anything you see with a green check mark means it was a unit of measure added by the user. So anything that was added by the user, it doesn't have a connection if you buy it, use it, count it in different ways. So um, so even the 750 milliliter, which is commonly used for anyone that has bar in there, 750 milliliter is fine. But Chef Tech doesn't know how many milliliters is 750 ml. So I literally would have to create a conversion saying 750 quantity ml equals 1 quantity 750 ml in order for it to talk to, get, how much is an 8-ounce pour or 6-ounce pour for wine. And some of these are definitely usable. I mean, you definitely can add units of measure because a lot of people do use bags. You buy a case of lettuce and or a case of cheese, and it's 3 or 2 5-pound bags. So bags are good because people are counting it. Because you want to keep it relative to people that are using Chef Tech, especially count sheets, your sous chefs and stuff like that. They may not, know what a case is or so on and so forth. So I kind of scroll down and, as long as I see really good, uses, portion, packs, those are all really good items to use. But you notice there's no POUND, and you notice there's no OUNCE either. There's just OZ, and for pint is PT and not PINT. So it's just good to be familiar with the units of measure when you're looking at your Chef Tech.
So Becky, the green checks were things that were added by the operator?
Correct.
And the black are just what was populated with the original system.
Exactly. And if you forget that, down at the bottom of units of measure, if I was looking, you'll notice there's a green check and it says
Perfect.
so,
Excellent.
I could, Chef Tech does have a few things, that you don't have to remember everything I said, but absolutely, to check that out, it's there. The biggest thing to know there, again, is your Chef Tech drop down open to give you all of this information, where to find it. Where did she go again? How did she do that? So. All right. Before I move into invoices, there are a couple ways to search your inventory list. So I'm in my inventory, all stocked. All of these arrows are expandable, so I can look and this is everything in my food. This is all my beer. I can go to my no category. So these are things that would not be associated. And again, you can shift click to get a whole bunch of items, or you can control click, whichever you would like to do. In that inventory list drop down, you can set account categories massively as well. So the drop down next to Chef Tech, whether you're in the inventory list or the recipes or invoices, it's going to give you the ability to change mass data. Okay. The other way to look at items is if you click inside of your list view and you get a long blue bar. Say I wanted to start looking at my cheese, I can start typing in CHEESE, and you'll notice it'll pull up to where it is, and I can look here. My favorite way to search, and I use this functionality in Chef Tech in my inventory locations, invoices, extensions, is on your left tree at the bottom, not as far as the pesky box, but the text and item name. If I go to text and item name and say, okay, I want to look up everything that has chicken in it. And chicken, cheese, and beef are the main culprits of inconsistencies. You'll find a lot. People will spell chicken CHX. They'll do chicken breast with no S, comma, space, random, and then they'll do chicken breasts random, and obviously they're the same thing, but you'll notice that it's duplicated. You've got starts with, contains, ends with. I'm going to hit contains, and this is going to pull up everything in my list that has the word chicken in it, whether it's in the beginning or the bottom. And, you'll notice that, my database is pretty pristine. So, and I'm definitely, my eye for detail in Chef Tech is crazier than most, but I always want to make sure there's an S on all of my breasts, and if your database had no S, I wouldn't add the S. I just want to be consistent, because when you pull up the text and item name, it really pulls everything and puts it in order. So this way I have the ability to look at those items. Green meaning all stocked, black meaning pre-populated, and in your case, it may be an item that was in another profit center. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Chef Tech item, because if another profit center added chicken breast without an S and put boneless skin, it's going to show up black in the other profit center because it is in your database and shared but it's not stocked because there's not a purchase for it, and it's not in your recipe in that profit center, but it would come up as a black not stocked item in other profit centers. So not always is it a Chef Tech item, but typically you can see how the naming convention is. You know, if it looks, you know, like I said, all lowercase, comma space, what it is, it was that's good naming convention. And then if I go into include sub recipes, you'll notice that the naming convention of recipes is going to be exactly what it is with the capital of each, because in some drop down menus, you're not going to see green versus blue. But if you keep to the naming convention, you can see at a glance view what is a purchased item versus what is a produced item. Make sense?
Yeah, can I click on inventory item at the top and it sorts it blue, green, black?
Mm-hmm. So this one at the top, this Bass chicken sandwich.
No, inventory item, if I clicked at the very top, does it resort the column?
Oh, no. That's the one thing. This is the only list view that doesn't sort.
Okay.
Now, if I go into recipes, I can sort by recipe, alphabetical, PLUs, so on and so forth. But unfortunately, the inventory list, you know, I want it. I've had it out to development. Well, I want to sort by last purchase. So if I have, you know, all the 2009s, I can just bulkily change them in one swift view. But I do data entry, and so I'm always looking for something, you know, to help people clean up their data and really analyze it. So, but I'll definitely tell them that you want that. Maybe it takes more than me to get it done, you know.
Gotcha.
So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close my inventory list, and basically how the inventory list is populated typically is going to be through purchases. Now, purchases, talk about laborious. It can be because you have to physically enter them and to get the most recent price. We do have EDIs with your top Sysco, US Foods, Fresh Produce, and one other that we have where you can actually purchase this interface, and it will you'll just import the invoice through their FTP site and automatically populate everything. We also have interfaces that are flat file interfaces. So for like Shamrock, which is local to this area, if they can produce, I know they can produce a CSV file as their invoices and they email that to you. You can actually import that into Chef Tech as well for population. The other items, however, do need to go in manually, but the thing with Chef Tech, again, if you use it every day or every third day and you're just in it a lot, you find tricks to make it easier, you know, it make it faster and make it efficient with the entry. So in my invoice list, I'm currently in my all list, and you'll notice this list view is also, I can sort by. So again, inventory list only being the one. So we're going to go ahead and show you an invoice. I'm going to go ahead and open up, and you'll see that I have all the different options in my column list. I can go to properties and change it, as well as what do I want to see in my list view. I like to see my total cost. I like to see if it was complete, if it was an EDI, so on and so forth. So you can see as much or as little information just off the top of the bat. So let's go ahead and look at this invoice. And I don't want to look at that invoice. I'm going to go into my left tree. I have vendors, so I can actually sort by vendors as well. And let's go ahead and look at this Sysco invoice. Okay. So how the invoice, once an item gets added to an invoice, that's what populates this list view. So now not only do we have our left tree view, but we also have a middle list view showing what items we've purchased from Sysco in the past. So at this point, you can add by, look, there's my trusty text and item name, and I can look up cheese, contains, and then it's going to populate all of my cheese items. So I'm going to go into my goat cheese and double click and it'll populate in my Sysco. Not only will it populate, but if I purchased it from Sysco before, it'll give me the product code and how I purchased it last time and what the price was. So at this point, I can actually, I typically don't do it by unit cost. I like to do it by total cost. So again, properties, display, and I'm going to enter using there. Okay. So the other way to enter items in, we can go ahead and type in cheese, comma space, and you'll notice that it's going to pull up a list, but notice I don't have anything stocked over here. So I'm going to, now I see a stock key. That means I've purchased it before. I haven't purchased it from Sysco before, so I'm going to enter in the information, and I'm going to do one case is $75 and then enter through. So now blue cheese crumbles is now purchased. Anytime I see that case, though, I always do my due diligence on this side of ShefTech. I'm going to go ahead and right-click, edit inventory item, and I'm going to make sure that ShefTech knows what a case from Sysco is. So if I go to purchases, you'll notice I've always bought it from Shamrock. Well, I've changed it to a more expensive Sysco for some reason. And I'm going to go to conversions and I'm going to say, okay, when I bought from Shamrock, it was one case is 3 each and 1 each is 5 pounds. So those are 5-pound bags. So now I'm going to say when I buy from Sysco, 1 case is 10 pounds. And that's why it was more expensive. So now that that information is in ShefTech, because I'm reading it from my invoice, typically your invoices are going to give you your case sizes. I'm going to enter that in. So now when I have my blue cheese and my beef and blue cheese salad, it's going to cost out to my most recent purchase, which is now Sysco. So it's going to show the different price for that salad because I just purchased it. Adding items, we'll go to cheese and we're just going to create some Becky cheese. It's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to add this? And I'm going to say yes. And it's going to pull up right away that snapshot. So I can go ahead and associate it in my food. And I can go into my conversions. And when I buy from Sysco, 1 case is 50 pounds. Because I want to, I don't want to use Becky's cheese in a recipe when I know that it's bought by the case and I have to ask the chef, what was in the case. So due diligence on this side, and we're going to do $150. Okay. And now Becky's cheese is in green and it's added into my cheese area. Okay. And then what I can do, the best thing about putting in your purchases as well is the reporting on purchases. Since ShefTech is a purchase-driven software, there's a lot of reports on purchases. So when I said the print drop-down gives me the ability to see what reports are in invoices, you'll notice that it's very small. So the next place to find reporting, if it's not available in the print dropdown, is going to be through reports, which is found on your primary button bar. And I'll go to my left tree and reports, and I'll go to purchases, and you'll notice that I have a whole bunch of purchases that have a white paper icon. And if I went into inventory, you'll notice it's more of a manila color. Difference in reporting is going to be anything that's white, you can only get the report from your report manager. Whereas anything that is manila color can be found in the list view through the print dropdown. So detailed purchases, I can sort by date, I can sort by vendor. So I can say, okay, how much money have I spent with Sysco in the last month? How much have I spent with Boulder Produce in the last week? And show me my variances. So I can say, okay, my start date is the 15th, which seems a little crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and do here, whoops, 9/12 to today's date. And then I can know, I'm going to show all my vendors, and I'm going to say include purchases that increased by at least 10%, not decreased. And that's all I want to see. So I only want to see if I have inventory items that have increased by at least 10. And I hit the preview button and it'll say, okay, your alfalfa sprouts in this period of time went up 134%. And my sour cream went up by 12.3% or 123. I can't tell if there's a period there or not. So now I have the ability, if I run this every week or run this every other week, this is probably a data entry mistake. Did somebody put it in by a pound? It should have been by the case, and it gives you more investigation of what's going on. Or did it truly go up that much? And that needs to be shown to the operators right away. So definitely play with the purchases, because this is definitely gives you the options to really look at the variances in your purchases. Okay. If I go to invoices, just to cheat, but the ease of it is ChefTech import invoice, Cisco EDI. It would automatically populate and go straight into the invoice, and all of this would be filled out for you already. So the ability to import it is really nice. But you'll also notice if I had a smaller company, let's say Oasis Bread Company, if this was Oasis Bread, and I only buy these 4 breads or 5 breads all the time, I can do my good old shift click all of them and move them over. So, when you do have to do manual invoices, there are ways to, get it easier for data entry. Okay. I'm just going to show you a recipe real quick, but I do want to leave enough time for physical inventory. Any questions so far? That's a lot of information.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
So in my recipe view, I've got my left tree. I've got my recipe categories again. I can look at my inventory. I can do reporting just on my bar apps alone. Just like an inventory list, I can come in and look at my inventory or look at my recipe, naming convention, capital of each. This is going to be a 6-pound batch. My portion size is 10 ounces. And the biggest thing to know with this, to not go in depth in recipes, is your yield and portion unit of measure need to be talking to each other. Meaning I have LB and OZ. Those are both units of measure of weight. So weight to weight, my number of portions is automatically populated. This is really good with how recipes are written. It can be, this makes 6 portions and my selling point is 1 portion, which is okay. You don't have to have weight to weight or volume to volume, but whatever you have, you want to make sure it talks so your number of portions are talking to each other. A lot of mistakes I see is they'll write a pound or weight yield and their portion will be 1 portion or 1 fluid ounce, and it's not talking, which typically down the road when you get into higher functionality will cause havoc. So I like to stress the importance of yield and portions in recipes. I'm going to make it active. It's a sub recipe. Now I can count my chicken tenders. I've marked it saleable with a PLU attached, meaning that I must have an interface with a point of sale system. So the point of sales handshake is the PLU number. So if it's the same in your sales mix, your unique identifier, that would be the same number that you put into ChefTech. That's the talking point. With invoices, the handshake is going to be your product code. So if you did have an interface, ChefTech doesn't do the handshake through the item name, but the handshake is through the product code. Okay. So categories, again, I love categories. I love using them because it really, especially if you're doing system cleanup, you can just put things in different categories like this needs cleaned up or this needs to be looked at. Recipes, it's the same as entering in invoices. I can add 1 cup of walnuts, halves, walnut pieces, because I'm going to encrust it. And then I'm going to go into my costs. And this is where I say when people start getting conversion problems, it's going to be what's wrong with it. Well, missing conversions is always, whether it's in the recipe or the physical inventory, how did I buy it to how did I use it? So right click to get into that snapshot. How did I buy it? Through my purchases. So I bought it by the pound and by the case, but it always goes by the last purchase price. So I bought it by the case, and over here in my recipe on the left-hand side, I used it by a cup. So I need to know how much volume is in a case of chicken tenders. So I go to my conversions, and I have 1 case is 25 pounds, and it didn't matter whether I bought it from Sysco or Spices and More. So now I need to tell ChefTech weight to volume, because it could be any vendor. And I can say 1 cup is, they're heavy, so I'm going to say 9 ounces. So now I've got a weight to volume. I've got my weight over here for my case. I hit OK, and now I'm able to have the missing conversion gone and have it priced out. I'm going to charge $10.95 for those nuggets, those tenders. It's running me a 43% food cost on that. I really need to get that down to 25%, and now I need to charge $17.64. I probably don't need to have those walnut pieces in there. I'm going to take those out. They're no longer famous, and now, you know, that's how you kind of can play with everything. Okay. And there's a lot more with recipes, obviously, but I definitely wanted to get into locations. So now we've talked about how the inventory list is devised and how to navigate it. We've talked about how does it populate through purchases, and we've built the recipes. Now we've got to do our physical inventory counts. So in order to do that, we go to inventory locations. The 2 ways ChefTech handles physical inventory is INV LOCS, which is inventory locations, and EXTS, which is where extensions, where I put my counts. When you build your locations, it is a very manual process. So when you purchase an item or don't have you have to physically put it into a location through this screen. And if you have been doing inventory in ChefTech and you have physical inventory count sheets and you've counted 0, 0, 0, 0, you have to literally remove it from the inventory in this same area. So if you have items that has been at zeros and you haven't counted them since 2014, to remove them from your worksheets, you're going to want to go into INV LOCS and find out where they are and literally highlight and remove them so they're no longer in your inventory. Right click being my best friend, insert new location, Becky's room, okay. And I'm going to go into Becky's room, and you'll start noticing when you really start working with ChefTech that it's the same functionality all the way through. So now I can sort by my all stocked to get my middle list. I can go into my text in item name, again with the cheese, and I can say, okay, I need to count Becky's cheese. I'm going to count it by the pound. I can control click and move items over with my right key, and everything's by the pound. I can also come in here and type in cheese. So same functionality. There's my items. I'm going to come on down here and add a new item. Okay. Once I have my locations built, I can come in and go to my print drop down and say, I want to look at my physical inventory worksheets. So this is what it looks like. So if you haven't built your locations, if you want it, you know, a lot of people have Excel sheets out there, just lock yourself in the room and just build them. And also make the type bigger. You can do grid lines, you can expand it, you can print them all off. We have separators and organizers, so it gives you a natural eye break and print those off. Once you have your inventory items in your locations, it's time to count. You go to that EXTS and you go into the day of counting, and you'll notice that here's all of the locations. So once I start entering in my numbers, it's going to start giving me my total extension. You'll notice down here, I have a missing conversion. It's not red, but you'll notice even though I put a number in there, if I have a problem, it's not going to add towards my extensions. So like with every missing conversion, right click, edit inventory item. I'm going to go into how did I buy it? I bought it by the tub. How did I count it? I counted it by the each. So my conversions, I either need to change it from each to tub, or I need to create a conversion saying that how many eaches in a tub, which I have, but my last purchase was Cisco for a tub, and in my conversions, with Chef Tech being so literal, it says spices and more is one tub is 60 each. So what I would need to say is any vendor is 60 each. I don't believe anybody is counting their individual bay leaves, but you know, so you want to be careful with that, you know, making sure, because that's when people start making mistakes. They're like, oh, well, I counted 5 tubs, and they thought each was a tub, so you've always had this number in. But really, what Chef Tech was saying is it's 60 each. So perhaps it was really supposed to be 1 tub equals 1 each to get that right price.
How would you change that each to tub?
Right click, edit, change unit, right click, being your best friend. It's going to take you back to the inventory locations, and you can change it to tub. The only challenge, and you want to be careful, because if you've had prior extensions and you've had it at a tub before, you'll in Chef Tech, you will end up getting a remove from a location. This means that it's holding on to whatever prior, because you would need to zero out the each and quantity 0, and then remove it and then put it in by a tub, because what it's going to do is it's going to hold, because you counted it by a 1 each at some point, that $14 extension is going to hold in your total ending inventory until it's all cleared out. So it can wreak havoc on your total extension, because it's still assuming that you have 5 each bay leaves out there instead of 5 tubs. When I'm looking at physical inventory and extensions, number 1, I don't want to have any problems. I got to clear those up to before I get in my numbers. The other thing I want to look at is no location, meaning these are going to be items that I've purchased. I'm sorry, let's go into not in a location. Not in a location, stocked account category. So if I have not in a location all stocked, if I have anything in here like my tablecloth, white, anything that's stocked that's not in a location, that means it's not showing up in my physical inventory worksheets and it's not being accounted for. So just because you purchased it doesn't mean that it was marked in a physical inventory location. If you don't have a count for it, then it's not going to go into your cost of goods.
So where is that one more time? Inventory extensions, not in a location.
Yep, not in a location, all stocked. So I always check these before I enter in my inventory items too, or my counts as well, because there's a lot of times that people will purchase new items. And this is a way for me to check to say, okay, it got added between the last inventory, and this also didn't get put in a location, so it's not being accounted for. Now, people will use this as maybe their in and outs for, let's say, catered events. So I purchased ice cream cones for this one party in the middle of the month. I bought it, I sold it, I used it. I'm never going to count it. So that's fine to keep it in there. But after you've sold it and done, if that's what you've determined to do, instead of put it in a location with a beginning inventory of 0 and an ending of 0, what you would want to do is come in, edit the highlighted item, and go into purchases and destock it, because all of your food cost reports are based on that all stocked green items. So if you have items in there that you haven't purchased, they're not in a location, you want to go ahead and destock them so it's not going towards any of your food cost reporting. Destocking it doesn't mean that it loses any of the information. It'll still hold your purchases and conversions, and when you purchase again, it'll show up green again automatically. Okay, so I definitely went over, but I do, if you have time, have questions, I would love to answer any questions that you have. Also, no, I don't know if you are, the e-learning classes are definitely fast and furious. It's really hard to get all the information into 1 hour, especially when we're talking an intro to Chef Tech or back to basics, because you can only do so much talking on only 3 items. We do have other classes that are available that specific, like we have recipe, we have physical inventory, and they just, stay within the functionality of Chef Tech, and it's not as broad as it is in this class. So we do have those available to you. We also have training one-on-ones, which I do as well. Those are 1 hour classes as well, and I actually go into your database and look at your data and train you on areas of opportunity, or let me know what's going on and what I can do to help to get a report or clean up or whatever you need. Those are 1 hour at a time. We also have 5 packs where you buy 5 hours. It's basically buy 5 at a lower price than 1 at a time. So usually if there's a lot of cleanup or a lot of information, I definitely say get the 5 pack. And then finally we do on-site, or you can come out here and we use your stuff. So there's a lot of training involved, and training can go a long way. So if you don't feel like you got as much as you needed out of this class, definitely give us a call. We'd be happy to get you into some more training.
Is there a big difference between the Chef Tech Plus and the what is it called, the Enterprise?
Well, the Chef Tech Plus, sure. The Chef Tech Plus, usually what you'd go from is Chef Tech Plus to Chef Tech Ultra. And the difference being is there's just a little bit different functionality, but it all depends on how you use Chef Tech. Plus is really good. It doesn't, it doesn't limit you if you're using it for, purchases, recipes, and physical inventory. Plus is just fine the way it is. When you start looking at more functionality of building other profit centers and using maybe production and waste and just kind of more functionality out of Chef Tech, then we start recommending to get into the Ultra. It's not, there is differences. I don't have them listed, but again, it just depends on how you use Chef Tech.
Well, my plan is to work pretty much as a commissary for the different practice centers. Like I have 3 food trucks, and I want to have the production for the 3 food trucks, and now we're doing some smoked meats, and so
right.
We're growing, and I just want to make sure that number one, I want somebody to help me out going over the setup that we had for the last 6 or 7 years to make sure that we're in the right direction. I want to have like an advisor to maybe maybe
what
an hour to
right,
start.
and what we have, sure, we also have what we call data reviews. So what we would do is pull a copy of your data and do an in-depth review and give you what we find. And then we talk to you. It's like, okay, here's where we think your areas of opportunity and cleanup are. And then we talk to you about what you want to, happen in Chef Tech, and we kind of consult you on, exactly what you're saying and be like, okay, well, this is the cleanup you need. And if you want to get to this goal, then we suggest A, B, C, and D. The best thing about 5-packs, I think it's better because with 5-packs, we're also able to go into your database. We're not necessarily going to pull your data and look at it at our time, but we're experienced with Chef Tech, so we can kind of look at it and say, okay, this is what we should do in the next 5 hours, and really be able to get you involved and give you homework, like, okay, your inventory list and this profit center needs to be totally scrubbed by this date, and we'll meet a week later or 2 weeks later, and kind of keep you at task. With a commissary kitchen and going into food trucks, that's a lot of transfers and recs. So you produce all of your food in the commissary, and then you move it into your food truck, and then your food truck sells it, and you want to keep. Now, that is the CoreTech functionality, and going from Plus to CoreTech is a pretty penny, to say the least. With any kind of CoreTech, that's definitely going to be something your sales rep can help you with. But as far as training goes, I always feel like CoreTech is always the available option for that. But you always have to start with your database as is. So whether you have Plus or Ultra or Basic Chef Tech, your data has to be pristine before you get into that upper level anyway. So I like to just train people on what you have now and be able to use the functionality that you have and be absolutely comfortable with it, so you can make an educated decision if the CoreTech is going to be something that you want to invest in. And that way the learning curve between Plus and CoreTech is very minimal, because all of your data is there and it all looks good and it's costing and moving, and then that way the transition won't be quite so much. Also, going from Chef Tech to CoreTech, not only do you get the training you need, you get an on-site visit as well, where one of us will come out there for 2 days, including 5 hours of training on top of that. So CoreTech's a big deal, and we definitely want to take care of our CoreTech clients.
All right. Does the Chef Tech Plus interfaces with QuickBooks Online?
It does not interface with online. It's only the desktop version.
All right. And with the desktop version, you can put invoices, and they can transfer to, purchase orders. You can create purchase orders with Chef Tech, and then they change those into bills or invoices?
Yes, so there is an option in Chef Tech. If you go into orders, you can generate orders in Chef Tech, and you can definitely do this with Plus as well. And you can create a new order, and it will generate a PO for you. And once you can generate it yourself, or I have it automatically, and you can generate the order, and once the order comes in, receive the order, push it straight to invoice, and then export it into QuickBooks.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, and order generation too can get really complicated as well. You can create orders based off of production, based off of past use, based off of PARs, based off of physical inventory, actual numbers. So ordering can, a lot of people do like the ordering, and I work with another Mexican restaurant down in Texas. All of their invoices, they don't even enter in invoices. They basically generate orders only and then push them to invoice after they've received it. So they don't even go to enter in invoices. It's all based off of their orders.
So how do they pay them?
Well, once they push it into QuickBooks, it shows what, is available, what they need to. QuickBooks determines what they need to pay them.
Oh, so basically they're paperless? Like they have a folder for those purchase orders and then they become invoices?
Yes, exactly. They create a purchase order, and once that product comes in, they have the ability to push it into invoice. So if I created this order for Seattle Fish and emailed it to them or called it in, they basically come in here, receive it to what they have. If they got shorted, they write it in, and then they change the prices. And then they go to invoice, put in the invoice number, okay, and it automatically is the invoice. And at that point, they push it into QuickBooks.
Sounds good.
Yep. So.
Well, this class was definitely a good lesson. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
It's really like a lot, and I just want to see if I can call myself person and see if I can have somebody review my.
Yeah, also too, if you're interested in any type of things like that, data review or training, you can actually schedule that through me. I can definitely kind of go through those options for you and sell that to you as well. So I would be happy to give you my information, and I can kind of talk to you offline, and I can, maybe look at your data real quick, give you another go-to meeting and look at it and kind of tell you what I think, what training direction you would like to go into.
Well, you know what? This is a lot. I never input that the information myself, and one of my managers did it, and I want to make sure that I have a good plan to work and have it done. So basically, I'm more confused than before. And
Oh no.
no, but it's been good. It's been an eye opener, and I just want to make sure that that perhaps you understand my business, and
Yes.
looking at the database, that I just want to explain to you where I want to go. Basically, the commissary is good, producing all the food for different profit centers. I anticipate that we're going to have another food truck, and I just want to make sure that we run a good controls, and we're profitable. And
Yep.
there's a lot of waste sometimes when we do catering events. There's a lot
Yes,
of food.
absolutely.
Basically, we do events for anywhere from 50 to 600 people, and then sometimes the food comes back, and the production is very important. I needed to tie it into the right production, and sometimes we do double the amount of guacamole than what we're supposed to. We've been bagging our food in a vacuum sealer
Yep.
bag. That seems to work out really well for us, and keep the product, keep the consistency of the product very well. But now it's going to be more challenging because sometimes it changes a lot. So we want to be able
Yeah.
to control. But the most important thing right now is to hopefully at your convenience, just to look at our website, at our inventory, and give us some feedback of what do you think that we should do and which we should start.
Sure.
What would you like?
I would be happy to work with you. I can certainly set something up and at least, just like I said, just briefly look at it and kind of give you the guidance of, what would be the best direction for you, So
I definitely want to take you up on that, and then I'll come up with a plan.
okay, that sounds good. And Miguel, what's the best email address so I can go email you and you can have my information?
It is Miguel at tacoloco.com.
That's easy.
Yeah, you should remember that.
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay, well, I will email you. I'll send you a copy of this class and then email you, and you'll have my information. And if you want to talk, I even have availability later today if you wanted me to just kind of look, and get the ball rolling sooner than later, or, look at your schedule. If you want to have...
I have to take care of a couple of things for the next 15 minutes, and then I this afternoon is definitely if you have the availability.
Okay, absolutely. That sounds good. Yeah. All right, sounds good, Miguel. Well, I will let you go. Jay, do you have any questions or?
Yeah, I got 3 questions. You just pulled up a production list. Where did you find that?
So production is available in Ultra and above. So anytime you're looking in ChefTech open, and you scroll down to production sheets, if it's grayed out, that means you don't have the ability to do production. So
all right, cool.
I know Plus doesn't have production, but Ultra does, and it comes with Ultra. So
all right.
you have a choice of production or waste. And I know, Miguel,
Gotcha.
you said waste is important. So these are production sheets. So basically I can create production sheets again. I can base them off of ordering. I can base them off of anything, inventory, anything like that. And basically these are everything, all the recipes I need to produce. And I can split them in different locations. So in my operation, I have 3 different locations or some people just have one giant prep sheet.
Right.
So there's that. And then it kind of strips it out and then has all of the different recipes. All of the recipes, even if you created the recipe in a 50-gallon batch, since you are producing it in 10, ChefTech will actually scale the recipe to 10 gallons based on your batch recipe.
Gotcha. Cool.
And you can also, generate orders based off of production too. So if you had a big catering gig and all that, and you're wanting to, order based on, orders that are coming up, you have the ability to order multi-vendor orders based on your production.
Okay. The next thing I'm cleaning up, how do you combine duplicate items?
Sure. So in my inventory list, ChefTech dropdown, everything, data, merge 2 inventory items.
Data, merge 2 inventory items.
So if I had the cheese and I started typing in cheese, you'll notice it's the Texan item name format, so I can do contains and say, oh, Becky was getting clever with her Becky cheese. So really, Becky's cheese was her favorite, which was brie, but I don't have brie, but it was actually blue cheese. So now by merging these 2 items, anything associated with Becky cheese is now going to be absorbed by cheese, space, blue crumbles. So it'll replace it in all recipes. It'll include all the purchases for Becky's cheese, all the conversions. Basically, everything that Becky cheese has to do with it will now be into blue crumbles, and you'll no longer see Becky's cheese. Merge, done, and you don't see it right off the bat. So we're going to go to our gray screen of love, inventory, cheese, and you no longer see Becky's cheese, you just see blue crumbles.
Wow, cool. And then delete items.
Sure.
I have a bunch of items on my inventory that are missing conversions, and some of them are just obsolete.
Okay. So the only way to delete items from ChefTech is if it doesn't have, if it's not in a recipe or doesn't have any purchases. So the only way to delete garbage.
That's happened, and basically I just got to go find the right item to put in the recipe, and then I can delete it out.
Yes, exactly. So if you go into recipes and you know that that item just needs to get out of those recipes, instead of going into each individual one, if you go to your recipe drop down and replace an item in all recipes and say, okay, I want to replace goat cheese and I want to put in cheese blue crumbles, for instance. So anywhere the goat cheese is in any of these recipes, it's now going to be replaced by blue cheese crumbles. And
Oh,
then
that's
if I didn't,
great.
and if I didn't have to purchase goat cheese, then I could delete goat cheese. But if
All
you have a
right.
purchase for it, you have to get rid of the purchases as well, which can be that. Unfortunately, there's no
Yeah, I got you. Can you
big
show me
way
that
to
one
do
more
that.
time where you just did that?
Sure.
Recipes.
Hey guys, I'm
Now,
sorry to interrupt you, but I had to take care of a couple of things.
I
Thank
know. All right. I'll talk to you later this
very much.
afternoon, Miguel.
All right,
Appreciate
Miguel.
it. Thank you. Good luck, Tom.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thanks.
Okay. So recipe drop down, replace an item in recipe.
Recipe drop down, replace an item. Recipe, replace item, and then all selected recipes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
All
Yep.
right, thanks.
And remembering anytime you want to change things massively and you're looking for that, whatever list view you're in, it's going to be whatever drop down is next to Chef Tech to be able to do a lot of stuff to a lot of data. So if I go
Gotcha.
into invoices, I go to the invoice drop down, you notice I can't do anything crazy.
Right.
And if you go into an inventory, let's just say you had one purchase, right click, edit highlighted item, and you go into purchases and you just had that one purchase. This is interactive too. You can do your right click, open invoice, and then you can take it out. And then you wouldn't have a purchase for it anymore, and then you could delete it if it's, just. Now, if you have 10, what I suggest doing is just get it out of your physical inventory through the inventory locations and remove it. And then before you remove it, right click, edit inventory item. I would just go ahead and destock it, and then that'll take it out as well. You also
Gotcha.
have the ability, if you can't clean it up, you've got it out of all your recipes, it has way too many purchases, you have the ability to deactivate it by getting your active on your column. And now your inactive items, they stay in their own little world. They don't affect your food costs. They could still be in your inventory locations. You still got to, physically remove it out of your location.
Right.
But that way, these are just things I couldn't delete because of whatever reason, and I just can't futzing with it. So just make sure.
Like, I've put an item I made, the ice cream cones inactive because I used it for one party, and then 4 months later I want to do ice cream cones again. Does it find it in inactive, or do I have to go look for it?
You've got to go look for it. So when you purchase those ice cream again, and you write in ice cream cones or cones ice cream on the invoice level, it's going to say, hey, you can't add an inactive item. And then at that point, what you'll do is you'll go into your inventory list, left tree inactive, and you'll just activate it again. And then you'll be able to receive it, and it will purchase it. It'll turn it green, and then you need to add it to the location. Now you notice if you just mark something inactive and don't destock it, it will become black in your inventory item, in your extensions. So that way it's a placeholder, so it would be in this inventory location, but if it's black, that means it's inactive and you can't do anything with it. So you'd have to deactivate it.
Perfect. All right. Hey, so here's what's going on. I've got these 3-4 restaurants that no one understands Chef Tech, and the management turnover has been massive in the last few years, and a lot of hands have been in this pot.
Yes. It's the ultimate death of Chef Tech is turnover.
Yeah. I am, I'm trying to formulate a plan, and the most fundamental piece is to try and get them so when they do their inventories, it's faster and easier and accurate. At this point, you know, they're doing inventory of 400 items, and 60 or 90 of them have missing conversions that haven't been fixed. So the inventories are fundamentally invalid.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
and I want to go in and start fixing them up, but just so that I understand how to do it, and then I want to get the GMs or chefs to do it.
Hmm.
And I will just say baby steps is really because everyone's a little stressed thin right now.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I understand. I'm working with the Med right now. Are you familiar with them in Boulder?
yeah, yeah,
So they bought basically a 5-pack, and I'm working with them. And they have their big guy is actually leaving, but he, you know, has got everybody involved. And what they're doing is they have one guy that really knows it well. Then they have 3 other people that not so well, and then now they're wanting to expand it to their other concepts. I think it's they've got other restaurants out there. So
mhm,
today is actually I pulled their data. I did a data review for them. Minimal cleanup because only one guy's been in it, and now it's training the bakery manager and training this and training that, and that
mhm.
starts today. So I've also worked with people that have same thing. Like they want to set it up and make it beautiful and then hand it off to the chefs and the bar managers and things like
Right.
that. So
So I
if
guess
you
what I'm
if
thinking
you
is I'd like
have
you to,
if you have the time and you have the dedication to it and you've got the general concept, it won't be as bad as you think, really. You know, you just have to have the time to do it. And that's the biggest thing with restaurant operators. And in this business, nobody has time for anything,
right.
you know.
Well,
So
that's
I
kind of what I
never,
have the time now to help clean it up for them to get it to a decent place for them that I would think would be easy maintenance.
mhm,
It's kind
mhm,
of my plan is to go in and help them clean it up so it's easier for them, and then show them how to maintain it.
right.
Um,
And we also have data entry where we clean it up for you, but honestly, I don't suggest that
yeah,
because
I don't want to do
then you're not
that.
learning it. You
Right,
know, it's
exactly.
like I can't tell you how many data entries I've done, which is my least favorite of anything I do here. But
Hmm.
I hand it over, and within months, it's just garbage again. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
because yeah, you
it's
put a
not
Band-Aid on and no one understand how to the systematic
exactly,
problem that it address.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
my last question is, I'm used to importing Shamrock invoices electronically.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
don't believe they've ever done it in this company. And
Okay.
one of the biggest issues right off the bat would be that Shamrock product codes, uh, you know, probably are not correct at all with what they're doing right now because they're hand doing every invoice, so they don't really care what the product code is.
Oh yeah, if they don't enter the product code, even if they have the import, what you can do is you can go into your Chef Tech drop down, import manager, and once you get in the import, oh, that's a little too big. Once you go into the import manager, you'll see Shamrock um, in there. Where is it? Invoices. Well, you would see Shamrock if they
Okay.
had Shamrock set up. We'll just say Cisco for Fresh Point. Yeah. So if they had Shamrock, it'd be over here and on your left-hand tree, and then it'll say point to this file name. So if they've had it, then you would be able to import it. You would pick Shamrock, so on and so forth, and it would pull from that file.
Okay. And if they didn't have it, what's involved in getting it up?
The import Shamrock is I think it's $495. since it's a flat file and it's 590, I think it's 595. Don't quote me on prices.
All right, I got you. No problem.
Yeah, it's 495 or 595, but it's a one-time purchase because it's a flat file. With the EDIs, it's once a year because we have an arrangement with them with the FTP site. So,
Gotcha. Where'd you find this import manager one more time?
Ask me that question again. I'm sorry.
Where did you find import manager? You went
import manager, sure. Through anything in ShefTech, tech drop down, import
Chef Tech, import,
ShefTech, import manager.
import, and then import manager.
Another thing to, if it was set up and used, if you did the ShefTech drop down invoice, it would, Shamrock would come up here somewhere as well, you know.
Gotcha.
But if it doesn't, the all, you know, import manager. I mean, I can also look at your account real quick if you want, and I can see if you've purchased it.
I mean, all I know, it's La Sandia. I don't have any other details besides that. It's a group. There's a bunch of them that use it, which is another problem.
Yeah, let me see what you got. Because you're in class, I can get to your file pretty quickly, so that's always nice. How long have you been with them?
Couple of weeks, maybe.
Woo.
Seems like years.
Right. You know, I started out with, I worked for, if you're familiar with this area as well, I worked for a Spice of Life Catering that's located in Boulder. I was their operations manager, director of operations for 15 years. And,
wow. What was the name of the company?
A Spice of Life Catering.
Spice of Life Catering. Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they were based out. We had a small office, and then we went to the Flatirons golf course, and then that got flooded in the floods, and then they've moved more to other items. But then I left to move back home, which was the Florida area. I couldn't get a job, and went work for a barbecue company for a little bit, and I found ShefTech, and I was like, huh, what is this? And I was the director of operations there and worked with the chef. And then I called Spice and was like, hey, you should get this. And they're like, we'll do it if you do the data entry. So I worked remotely for them. And then I got the heck out of Florida and Georgia back to Colorado, thank God, and then found out that ShefTech was local and that they were hiring trainers, and they were moving their training business model from just IT and talking IT stuff to people that actually had operational experience that could talk the talk, you know, and be able to, you know, speak to that level, you know.
Right. Exactly.
And so now I'm almost coming up on 4 years. So
wow.
I've worked with so many people though. I really, that's my favorite part. You know, it's either restaurants or catering or hotels, country clubs, and every operation is different. You know, fundamentally they're all the same, but you know, everybody tweaks, turns, and stuff like that. So, you know, I love working. I like seeing the success at the end. There's a lot of people that drop off, which gets kind of sad, but you know. All right, you must be
Modern Mexican.
Mexican. Yep. Let's see what you got.
Wow.
Well, you've got an e-learning class. You actually have 2 one-on-ones left. So you actually have 2 hours available to you that they purchased in January, March, April. So you have those available to you. And let's see what you got. ShefTech plus 10 profit centers. You do have production. You have 10 production. So you
set up in 13. That. I doubt they've ever been used or even know they have it.
Probably not. And you've got a new sales rep. Her name is Robin.
I've talked to her a
And
few times. She's
Yep.
learning.
Yeah, and she's gave you a free class for today, so that's good. And you
Oh.
are on our cloud services, so you're actually on our hosted environment. Looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. It does not look like you have any interfaces. Yeah, you don't have any. You haven't purchased any. Don't have any. So.
Okay. I'll put that on my Christmas list. I'll work on database. See if I can't start getting.
It would be absolutely worth it for you if you do a lot through Shamrock. It's worth it. That one's worth its weight in gold for sure.
Yeah, what I can do is have them keep putting the invoices in manually and start updating the PLUs, the SKUs, so
Yep.
that they're correct. So that if we do get that done early next year, it'll be.
Yeah, and you don't have a sales interface. I mean, you don't have any interfacing right now. You're just completely all manual.
Yep.
But yeah, production, that's fun. You just got to learn how to use it. And it looks like you're going to be, when you get your upgrade, it'll be next April 2018. That's when your renewals hit. So, either you want them before or after. I don't know. Yeah, 4/10/2018 is when your renewals come up. So there you have it.
All right. Thanks for the info.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, good luck, Jay, with your new adventure in life. And you do have 2 hours of 2 hours of training. I want to see if I don't think I'm your trainer, but let me see. We have a list of all of our people. Nope, you must be in Glenda's clutches. Yeah, I don't have you. So, but just call the number and, say you have training, Glenda, or I can be happy to take care of that. So we can definitely get you on the road to clean up for sure.
Yeah, I don't know which store I'm going to focus on yet because I'm still trying to get an idea of strengths or understanding of the managers.
Right.
But I'm wondering if I can't get you just to dial in and give me a quick look of like, yeah, you got a lot of problems, no problems.
Sure. Yeah,
Here's a
absolutely. I
plan
mean,
of attack.
I offered it. Yeah, I offered it to Miguel. I'd offer it to you too. Absolutely.
What's your email, Becky?
Cheftec, CHEFTEC, trainers, TRAINERS @gmail.com.
All right.
And what's yours, Jay? I can send you a copy of